Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is a horror film from the United States, English language, released in the year 2015, directed by Patrick Kennelly, and this film is called Excess Flesh. So Excess Flesh is about two roommates. You've got one roommate who is much more confident than the other one. The other one has a lot of body image issues. She doesn't like to go outside the apartment. She's finding it very hard to cope. She doesn't have a job. So she's relying on her roommate to really support her. So this is how the more dominant roommate is going to control this woman's life. She's basically coming home saying that she's fat, that she's lazy, that she needs to stop eating, she looks ugly, and this is really starting to have a wearing effect on her. So the roommate that has a lot more confidence is going out every night, having sex with all these different boys, and this main character is starting to resent her, basically thinking that this roommate is not really a friend and that she's just there just for the sake of being there. So this woman, this main character, really wants to talk about these issues, but the roommate is either too tired, or she's sleeping with someone, or she's too drunk, and so this slowly eats away at this main character to the point of a downward spiral into insanity. So as the situation gets worse, things are about to get a lot darker, and everybody's lives are never going to be the same again. So what happens at that point on? Something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Excess Flesh. Before seeing this film, I did have my skepticisms. I had my hesitations coming into it based on the fact that I saw a film called Eat. Now, Eat is a movie I reviewed not long ago, and that does touch on very similar themes. Basically, body image of women and how destructive food can be, and how destructive habits that we create through stress can be as well, and how much of a domineering sort of effect it can have on our lives. And I think that Eat had a lot of potential, but it didn't realise its potential because it was more focused on being an extreme film. And so I knew that this movie, Excess Flesh, was going to be extreme as well. So I thought that it was going to fall into the trap of being extreme for the sake of being extreme, and that was going to basically take no notice of all the potential sort of impact and the emotional sort of thought-provoking material that it could have. After seeing Excess Flesh, I will say, however, this was a lot better than I thought it would be, and thankfully, yes, it does have very extreme moments, but it is definitely a movie about society and about how destructive society can be, especially upon young, vulnerable women. Now, ultimately, it's about body image, and I think that a lot of unrealistic expectations are put onto these girls who look at these magazines, look on the TV at all these beautiful models and how slim they are, basically no fat, and you kind of send the wrong message to say that if you're beautiful you look like this, and ultimately that's what women strive to do, and that's because it is very unrealistic expectation. Health can deteriorate as a result, and I think this movie depicts that very, very well. You've got this main character who immediately gain a lot of sympathy for, because she is absolutely, she's belittled at every single point. You've got this really arrogant woman who feels that she has the right to put her down as much as possible, that she sees herself as a better person because she looks better. But ultimately it's the other way around. This woman, who appears to have a beautiful outside, is very ugly in the inside, and I think that is the beauty of the film, is that it wasn't glorifying looking like the model, and it was showing you the negative impact that that can have, and just looking good on the outside doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good person. And I think the main character and the roommate that she had, I thought the connection between those two was very good. They were supposed to be friends, but it was very superficial. It was very empty that this domineering sort of housemate had upon this main character. So you sense that it really wasn't a friendship, and that this woman who was doing all these horrible things didn't really understand what being a friend was, is because we're living in a very superficial world. And then on the other hand, you've got this character who is coping with her stress through eating, and basically the problem with her and the reason why she's so stressed is because she wants to look like her roommate, but ultimately she sees eating as the problem, but eating is also her coping mechanism. So it's a lose-lose situation, and you feel that she's not really going anywhere, and then when she starts to get frustrated at her roommate, tensions start to rise, and things are going to go out of hand, and they're going to get very bad. And I will say that this is an incredibly surreal film, and it is a very, very uncomfortable film. Now, there are extreme moments, there are very disgusting moments, but the gore is few and far between. So it actually felt like Patrick Kennelly had a direct plan, and he said to himself that he wasn't going to go to the extreme lengths that Eat does just for the sake of provoking you from what you see, and it would have been very easy to do. But I think that it is definitely a thought-provoking sort of theme that the movie depicts, and it depicts it just so much better is because overall, as a whole film, it just feels a lot more complete. Now, the atmosphere was great. I thought the low budget that the film had really helped contribute that sense of dirtiness. You know, some films that have a much bigger budget, they try and emulate a dirty atmosphere, but you feel that it's just a little bit too clean. So when lower budget horror films like this come along and they get that very dirty feeling that they want, I think the lack of money really is their advantage, and it shows you that the director was taking advantage of his limited budget. I thought that the soundtrack was very haunting. You know, this is a movie, as I said, that doesn't make you feel very comfortable. You know that things are going to go very bad. You're anticipating things going very bad, and when things start to go very bad, you think that this is basically a product of what society has inflicted, and basically what it happens when someone is pushed to the point of not being able to take anymore. So the acting was fantastic. I thought that the acting from this woman who was very superficial and the one that was a bully, I thought she was very over the top, but that really symbolised what society was. But the overall focus of the film is on the main character. I think she does a great job. There are scenes that will truly scare you, especially one scene involving a long eating sequence. Now, a few people have complained about that sequence being overly long, but for me, I thought it drove home what the movie was all about. Basically a slow deterioration based on that image that I was just talking about. So she's eating, and then all of a sudden she'll just slap herself, and then she's eating, and all of a sudden just bang, she'll slap herself again. You think to yourself, okay, this girl is unhinged, and she's just a ticking time bomb, and that her friend, her so-called friend, is in a lot of danger, and how is this going to pan out? So I just really like the way that the film progressed from start to finish. You know, there are very limited characters, so the emphasis really is on the performances, and I think for a low-budget horror film, not only does it look very good, not only does it match the vibe of a horror movie, it does have emotional depth, and overall, acting was very good. So at the end, that's when it really kicks into gear with its disturbing imagery, its disturbing sort of violence that the movie has, but it is few and far between, so it shows you that it's not just trying to pull a cheap trick, and in fact it's also trying to make you actually think. Now, there are a few moments in the film that I'm not going to give away, but a lot of people didn't like the way that it actually went about its storytelling, but for me, I really liked it. I just thought it proved something a little bit different, and once again it emphasised that problem that society has and how women feel that they should be a certain type, and in the meantime getting to that certain type is actually quite dangerous. So it is an eye-opening experience, but at the same time a very entertaining one. It has some incredibly surreal imagery. There are some moments that are very bizarre, so if you like that kind of thing in your horror film, then Excess Flesh is coming highly recommended, and as a result I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.